Hail, ladies and gentlemen of the Iron Age. I am your intrepid host, the Lord Otter, and today I'm joined by quite the crowd as we start this Q&A stream for the debut novel of mine, Steel and Stormbright, The Curse of the Star Raids. How are you all doing, guys?
Quite
Tremendous.
Doing
man.
good.
Stormbright as usual.
Just swell.
Kahuna, you entered in just at the last moment.
I know. I got on like, oh crap.
What was the joke?
I too like to live dangerously.
Well, look at my hair, man. Of course I'm dangerous. No.
You redneck.
That's the spirit.
Anyway, let's talk about your book, good sir.
Yeah, so I've got a small list of questions that I've got set up, but if there's any questions that you all have or any questions that the chat would like to see answered, it's very much a free-form stream for this. So ask me your all's questions, and I'll answer it, and we'll also just shoot the shit while we're at it. That's kind of the point of the stream.
All right, then what was the origin of this story? At what point did the seed land in your mind that turned into Curse of the Star Wraiths?
Oh, the honest answer is that there were a couple of points. Now, I can say that I sort of started with the setting, just kind of like an idea, but it was really after a certain moment where it kind of started coming together what the actual story was going to be, even from a basic idea.
So you had more world building in your head than any actual story or characters in mind at first?
Yeah, I'm probably more of a writer who likes to start with a setting and let that inform me on what the story is going to be. It's much easier for me to go from.
So for the seed of the idea that became that world, did you just have an idea? It's like, man, I wonder what this would look like, or this would be a really cool setting for a story. Like was it an image? Was it just this idea? Was there a single kind of point that was the initial seedling?
So without getting too in depth about it, probably the initial seed for the story was having it be sort of like a land of dreams. So in a sense where waking reality and conjured dreams kind of like interweave between themselves. So you'll see that a little bit in the book where what's real and what's imagined by the human mind kind of like intersect. That's especially where magic comes into place.
Does that lead to any unreliable kind of perspective, or is that more just an aspect of the world for everyone?
At least for this story, it's more of an aspect of the world itself. The story itself is more of an omniscient third-person perspective. You could argue at points it's more limited, but it's not really unreliable narrator for this novel anyway.
So it's more like what's it called again by Brandon Sanderson, his biggest book, his epic that he's writing. I forgot the name.
You're thinking of Stormlight, and that's third person limited. Third person omniscient is kind of an older style. Maji Chan's book is like that, and a lot of older sci-fi and fantasy books are like that.
It's
too.
It's probably one of the most reliable styles.
Yeah, limited third person is really common. What's the other common style? First person.
First person, yeah.
Yeah.
Third person omniscient was really popular maybe 20, 25 years ago. But it's kind of fun seeing people bring it back. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah,
I thought that was just kind of the standard.
It's immortal.
Yeah. It's real fun having old farts like you bring it right on back.
Oh my god.
By the way,
you have a meme
Otter,
book,
are we
right?
on Rumble as well?
We're just on YouTube for this.
Okay.
I should probably see what I can do about that.
So
that was an
no
oversight
fucking
on my
swearing.
part.
There you go.
Fuck.
Let's see.
All
right, I got a question for you.
What's that?
What made you want to set your world more in a Bronze Age than the typical medieval or Renaissance?
Mostly because I think the medieval fantasy age the market's kind of saturated with it as it is. I'm not dissing it at all, but you could probably make a similar case with Bronze Age, but this is very much where the Conan influence really comes in. Whenever you get into something that's sort of like the Hyborian Age or something a little low tech like that, you get to have more of a primal aspect of humanity kind of like realize itself. And that's really something I wanted to tap into.
What's
I mean,
like the
not
Bronze
original
Age?
in the
Procreation.
slightest, but it's something I really like. And especially for this story, I wanted to hammer home the emotion. And I think Bronze Age really helped that more than medieval.
Is it because not only is the world more savage, but humanity is as well in certain ways?
Yeah,
Like it's less refined. It's more every day is a bit more of a risk.
yeah, every day is a bit more of a risk. Lifespans are much lower in this setting. Depending on the
Shaving is a risk.
yeah, depending on the kingdom, the technology level does shift. The major kingdom within the book, Alcaron, it's probably the most technologically advanced within that region, that stretch of land. It's probably the closest to actual like Golden Age Rome, maybe with hints of medieval tech in there too.
Bronze Age time.
So what as an example, what's probably some of their most advanced items you would find in the city?
So it's a little bit unique because it's not necessarily science as we know it. It's more in the sense of Alcaron is a place where the Ilgrathian race, which is separate from humanity, they are trying to create a living paradise guided by their goddess. And there is an actual form of magic mixed with technology involved in doing that, though it's not immediately apparent. So
Magic
the
with
land itself
technology.
it's more golden, like it's vast rolling plains, gardens, like nature seems to be in harmony with itself. Though the closer you look, something's wrong.
Actually, you set up a very interesting point in the timeline right there, I think, because I don't know if there's something you'd want to pursue down the road, but when you think about it, a lot of us have talked about like what it's like to, stories merging magic and technology. But what if magic was part of their normal life when they were developing? How differently would technology develop, and what would it look like in modern day had magic been a factor in developing the technology? Because I'm sure there'd be some vast differences in the way it developed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely, and that's something that's explored at least in a couple of instances throughout the book. There is the case with Alcaron, which is kind of like this growing society, which is like trying to reach out and overtake others. But to the south is the nation of Divnarost, which is more of a nation in decline.
It's already a human nation, or
this is a separate race of the Islyrian race. So they are more of a gray-skinned people who had their moment in the sun, but now they've become cursed. They're very much a civilization in decline.
Very Melnibonean.
Yeah,
right
very
are they the
Melnibonean.
same species that are in Alcaron, or did I say that right?
It's a different species. So there's
the Alcaron or the Ilgrathians, aren't they?
Yeah, the Ograthians. So
I have a
to
question.
describe it
sorry.
really simply, there's humanity. The Ograthians are sort of like this long-lived, almost elf-like race where they're gold-skinned. They sort of have like varying metal hues for like hair color, and they almost look like heroes out of legend. They're statuesque figures.
So
But
they're
they're
hot, basically.
Yeah. But their actual tenacity and will is something entirely different. Once you realize what they're about, you want to be as far away from them as possible.
Are they buffed and sweaty?
I guess so. They're more of a
Damn it, man!
From an appearance
You're gonna
perspective-
regret having me on this stream, but
it's
That's
gonna be
fine.
great. I have lots of material then.
I'm rolling with
Hold
this.
His
So,
biggest
okay.
inspiration was BDSM. That's all I'm going to say.
God damn it!
That's the gray skin, right? No.
Fucking Mogwai.
Anyway, Maji-chan, you're desperate to speak. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, anyway. So, okay. Pretend I'm straight off the street. I have no idea who you are. All I know is this guy named Otter is trying to pitch a book. What would you want me to know? Like, how would you pitch it to me to convince me to get it?
Okay. I would say high adventure, savage, gritty action, high drama and emotion, weird fantasy, and
But
tits.
how,
Yeah, I was gonna say,
that's
how would
not
Billy
gonna
Bob
sell
Sack
it
sell
for
it?
me. How would you
Use
my
like other
interest in those?
books, Otter. Use like inspiration books you were inspired by that are close to yours.
Yeah, so I think a really good comparison to other literature that I would have.
To other literature, you mean?
So something like Conan the Barbarian meets something more like Vinland Saga or Vagabond.
Oh, wow.
Ooh.
So it's dynamic duo fantasy, but with a darker side to it as well. But
Those are two high stuff.
Yeah. I do not.
Vagabond is such a good story, man.
Yeah, definitely some Vagabond and Berserk inspiration. I didn't want to go quite as far in that direction, though, because that's the thing with a lot of dark fantasy. I wouldn't necessarily describe them as doing it necessarily, but whenever you have grimdark or dark fantasy, they tend to go down the nihilistic route. That is not what I wanted to do here.
So you want to... No,
I wanted those darker moments to actually strengthen them and actually push them forward. And that, for me, that is way more effective than just tearing down characters.
So it's
need
not
to
grim
push
dark,
back
it's
up.
grim hope.
Yeah.
That's what I'm about to say. Like, it's more like a dark setting with a heroic story.
Yeah, exactly.
Those are some of the best stories because honestly, you need, like, sometimes the light of hope needs a really dark setting in order to properly shine.
Right.
I think that's a really great way of doing it.
I distinctly remember Bob Ross saying you need darkness to pronounce the light. I agree wholeheartedly with that. It makes for some of the most impactful storytelling whenever you see an author or team or studio balancing those really high moments of happiness with the darker moments. You need both.
Reality is so weird. It's kind of strange. You take somebody who's good and everything's good. What are they going to do? Nothing, because everything's good.
Yeah.
And you have to have something go wrong for there to be anything worth taking note of. It's a strange thing. In order for there to be a good book, it has to be bad.
So how long did it take you to write?
It's probably taken me around 2.5 years to write. The original concept for this world came to me around February of 2021.
Ooh, the dark times.
I can tell you, so this is kind of circling back to what you were asking earlier, Wrangler, when I first got the idea for the story. I distinctly remember going to the gym and working out, but as I'm kind of like walking in, there's just like huge clouds overhead. It's storm's coming in quick. I get inside and it's like all around me. It's just this absolute torrent of thunder, lightning, utter maelstrom. Then 5 minutes later, it's just gone. Like nothing ever happened. And that's, you'll see that especially with the opening chapter of the story. That was where the initial idea came into place.
So from Florida weather.
Well, this was technically Alabama, but yes.
But that sounds like a Florida thing.
It pretty much is.
Other, I also have a big
maelstrom.
Other, I also have
Get
a
that a
big
little bit
question.
here.
Go play.
Other, I also have a big question, which is because it is very brotherhood based. Is the dynamic with the brothers also relatable with the banter or the little bit of fight? Like, basically, it's a bit like the show that I can closely put it through is Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood.
Yeah, and I think that's a great comparison. If you wanted to compare the dynamic of my two main characters, you could make a pretty good comparison to Fullmetal Alchemist, which is funny because it's something I had never even thought of until about 80-90% of the way through the book. I went, hey, you can actually make a few comparisons here.
Well, there are too few good sibling stories in modern fiction. It's really like, I mean, like you could go back into like Frodo and Sam from Tolkien and say they're kind of like brothers, and that could be true, or Merry and Pippin. But modern day, there's very few good sibling or sibling-like relationships in fiction. It's really unfortunate.
Yeah, and
It's
this
by
is
design.
this is part of why I wanted it to be two brothers, just because I wanted it to be like positive male roles, but at the same time not dissing the other sex either. So my main female is my main villain is obviously female, but one of their primary companions later on is like pretty much the polar opposite of who our villain is. So I
So
wanted to have kind of like a square dynamic there because the Empire of Alcaron is like they worship their goddess, and in turn everything is sort of matriarchal in that sense, kind of like violently matriarchal. But
So
at
Hollywood
this,
at the moment.
yeah, you can make a couple parallels there, but at the same time, I wanted it to be where one of their greatest allies and who helps them through a lot of situations is also female, and I don't know, I wanted to make a sort of distinction there between positive versus negative, kind of like one is caring, loving, the other is like almost domineering. So whenever you hear Billy Bob Sax say BDSM, I think he means that.
So, the Lord Otter. In Greek mythology, there's kind of three different ages. There's the age of myth, which is kind of the pre-god era with all of the titans and such. Then there's the era of the gods, and then there's the era of heroes, where the gods and where humans are becoming more capable and more powerful, but the gods are still involved. Would you say that your setting is kind of set in a way like that? The gods are still around and active, but they're not the main focus of the story anymore.
It's somewhere between the Age of Gods and the Age of Heroes because the gods do
Okay.
play a major role in the story. If you've seen some of the cover art, like let me pull this up really quickly.
The storm god, or
Yeah, let's see.
Neutron Boar is a beast, man. They
Oh,
did such
yeah.
a good job on this stuff.
So this is one of the gods that's encountered early on, and he goes by the name of Calamtu for pretty obvious reasons.
Calamity?
Calamtu. So he is basically a god of calamity.
Yeah.
He's Calamity times 2.
Yeah. But
Oh, dude, that's such good. That's so good.
one of one of the major aspects to this world is that it's a world where gods and men walk alongside each other. So encountering a god is uncommon, but it's doable. A lot of the actual magic users in this world are those who've encountered gods in the past, and
Yeah.
through that connection, they end up kind of like awakening.
So just being in the presence of one of these beings for a given period of time is enough to possibly awaken your potential.
Potentially.
Potentially awaken the potential.
There's like two main ways to become sort of like a sorcerer or a magician in this world. So that is one. The other is more of kind of like your standard, like I'm gonna train for years, kind of like learn the different magics. But there's a lot more mental and emotional discipline behind it. It's not just I cast fireball. It's more like I have to kind of like go through the necessary meditations, make sure that there is an actual stamina kind of like cost for it. But at the same time, there is the very real possibility that it could fail and go horribly wrong.
So it's like a soft magic system with a few hard edges. Is that kind of how you describe it?
Exactly.
That's cool,
I'm
man.
looking forward to finding the hard and soft because I'll take notes. You know this.
I'll show you all the soft. I got it all right here.
Well, if we're comparing this to Shad's book, the magic system for this isn't nearly as like hardly defined as his is. Like his has rules.
Yeah, his has some really hard edges. It's basically a science.
Yeah.
With the level of detail that is involved.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I don't know. Every time, like where I was reading, it seemed like there was always a power up. So it was like a Super Saiyan on top of a Super Saiyan on top of a Super Saiyan, and he somehow managed to get through it all. I don't know. He didn't seem limited. Let's just say that.
He has his limits, and he ran into others who could do stuff just like he could, and then some things he couldn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was the essence of that character was that he was an exceptionally gifted and driven individual who had a whole imagine that stamina of a 20-year-old in the body of with a mind of an 80-year-old, and that's kind of what was going on there. But alas, the Lord Otter, how much of yourself did you pour into these characters?
In one way, not much at all. In another way, a lot. It
That's
really
the appropriate
depends on
answer.
how you look at it.
That's bullshit.
Someone needs to write a book about a slacker hero.
Listen,
Oh,
all I'm
that's
gonna say
you
is-
find that all over the place.
Let's hear
I
what
think
Billy
it's
Bob
called
Stack has to
Futurama.
say.
hold up. All
How
I'm gonna
much am I
say is
bullshitting here?
Surst and Otter have a lot in common.
Oh,
That's
fuck
all I'm gonna
off.
say.
Surst, the breath freshener.
One day, Billy Bob Sack will say Karst. One day. One fateful day.
I'm saying it correctly.
Thirst.
No, you're not.
Yes, I am. Like I
So
told
we're
him,
just
I said,
confirming
you're
that
gonna
it's
have to get
pronounced
used to-
thirst.
Karst.
Yeah.
Oh,
it's,
good. Okay.
It's Surst.
If it helps at all, at the tail end of this novel is a glossary section, and for any of the names or more kind of like elaborate spellings, I do actually have it pronounced in there, sort of like Wheel of Time style.
That's very nice.
Yes.
I love that in books.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, such
just to avoid
We
any
actually
confusion
talked about
or
it.
anything
We
like
actually
that.
talked about it. That was one of the things we talked about.
Listen, he's just gonna have to get used to people saying it the way they want to. You know.
Oh yeah, it's gonna take
No.
time.
Yeah, no, before there's an audiobook or like some sort of adaptation to TV or movie, it's amazing what people say. Like my mom used to read Harry Potter to me and my brother and sister growing up, and it was Hermione. Or Hermione for years. And then the movie
what
came out.
was
I'm like,
the
wait
other
a
one?
second.
Like the most common one for Hermione's name.
Yeah.
I actually like Hermio better, but
Yeah, but also since we're talking
Little
about the magic,
Kahuna.
since we're talking
What's
about the
that?
magic, I'm looking at the cover with two brothers, and one has magic and the other is a dagger.
Oh my
or-
gosh, she is totally related to you.
All right, say hi, guys.
Hi.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi.
Nice.
Say nice book.
Nice book.
Thank you.
All right, buddy.
Now, what are you saying, Devil's there?
Yes, I was looking at the cover, and because one has magic and the other has a dagger, is there something with the enchantments, or is the magic more person focused with elements that you see, without spoiling stuff, of course? But
So without going too much into spoilers, it's a lot more focused on the elements. So
okay,
so there are different schools of magic. I'm trying to remember how many there are off the top of my head. I think it's like 9 or 10.
Oh.
But there are very clear boundaries as to what a sorcerer can do in that. There's a lot of wiggle room in between, but it's like whenever you become a magician or sorcerer, usually it's like you are kind of like progressing within that one school of magic. That's sort of like who you've awakened to be, essentially. There is a bit of overlap, but not terribly so. It's actually kind of rare for that to happen.
Now, the
Okay.
different magic types is it because they're channeling the energies in a different fashion?
Yeah, it's like
Or is it
channeling
different types of
and-
energies entirely?
Yeah, so like one of my main heroes, Stormbright, he is an aeromancer, which means he can channel pretty much anything from the heavens, though himself he's channeling lightning specifically. One, because he's still kind of a novice in this book. Two, it's kind of like closer to what his actual style is. Technically,
so more like
an
a
aeromancer,
Zula
you
in
can
a way.
you can also manipulate like the winds or the rain or something like that. But for him, it's specifically lightning. That's his
So a bit of-
style.
So a bit of Avatar: The Last Airbender, water benders, and lightning benders mixed in.
A
In the
little
words
bit.
of,
And then the Fire Nation attacked.
In the words of King Bob,
No, Kahuna, the
heroes-
Fire Nation has already attacked.
so we're already into Legend of Korra territory, huh?
Oh, no.
Please no! Please no!
already?
No, thank you.
King Bob said, "You're a wizard, Otter."
I know, right?
All right, guys. Sorry, I got to get going here. I got 2 little ones, and it's just not one of those days I can do this for a long time. But the Lord
damn
honor,
it.
I am very excited to read your hardcover book because that's the one I'm going to order.
We'll see you
And
get it first.
good luck, man.
You're
Thank
gonna
you,
want to
Kahuna.
buy at Barnes and Noble.
Yeah. For a disclaimer, I do recommend going through Barnes and Noble for checking out at least the hardcover and the paperback, just
I don't
because
know which
Amazon
which-
is a little funky at the moment. I'm gonna have to work
don't
it
know
out
which
with
site
them.
I can use.
Arguing
That's-
out last night about it,
Yeah, a little bit.
and this morning.
Let's see.
I don't know which site I can use because different place completely. So
Yeah, it seems to be localized too. That's the most frustrating thing because it shows up on your side, but here in the States, it's completely different, which just leaves me scratching my head. It sounds like it's going to be a whole fun time with customer service.
oh yeah.
Fought that battle a little bit this morning, but in the meantime, while that stuff's getting sorted out, I do recommend going through Barnes and Noble. They've got all of the different formats up there: ebook, paperback, hardcover. That's what I
Royce,
recommend.
you're getting a stink eye from Royce right now.
I made sure to add the link for Barnes and Noble.
Where's the fucking stream on?
Yeah, I'll
the
get my
YouTube channel,
hardcover
brother?
through that one.
Oh, by the way, one of the questions I wanted to ask was about a favorite character of mine. You know what I'm talking about? Eidos.
Yeah,
Oh,
by the way, I fucking loved your review. It was so good.
Thank you. That's
He
no spoiler review.
Yeah.
Mikey,
I know
not
who
read
you're
it.
talking
You're not
about, though,
educated yet.
Adis.
Who's not
He's like
educated?
Herman, but competent. You know.
Wow. Just wow.
Adis was there since the original. He was there since the very first draft, but as a character, he's quickly become one of my favorites, especially in subsequent drafts. He's very much a side character. He started out that way, but I don't know it. The more I've kind of like developed the setting in the book and especially the characters, the more I fall in love with what he stands for the most. Probably.
Well, he's a small character in this book, without spoilers, but you know, you
I
set him
wonder-
up more.
He has
I
a
wonder
cat.
how I'm-
He has a
Oh, he's a
cat.
cat person.
Oh, okay. Hold up. What was it? You had the cat smiling.
Yeah, that was something you caught whenever you were beta reading. I think I changed it to it purring instead.
Oh, damn it.
Here,
That-
kitty,
I
that-
want to make a joke about the
That
Cheshire
part
cat,
was really adorable.
Yeah, Adis is a cat person, and I mean his cat really is there to support for him, especially through the tougher times.
I got something for you. Okay, the Ilgrathians. What
Yeah.
cultures did you base the society on?
So the biggest inspiration for them is the Roman Empire.
Ah.
I mean, the more you actually kind of like read through them, that's very much where a lot of their nobility and especially a lot of their depravity kind of sort of like found root was in the lighter and darker side of the Roman Empire.
I have this kid
What
from
also-
Metatron in my head.
They're kind of also like Gomorrah and stuff as well.
Gamora? What do you mean?
Like Sodom and Gomorrah.
Sodom and Gomorrah.
Oh, that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It really is like if Rome and Sodom and Gomorrah kind of like combined, that would be the capital city of theirs, Mirangel.
King Bob 24/7.
I don't know. I think a certain telepath might have a say. And this time he's not coming with the disruptor. He's calling a certain Martian with a squadron of fighters.
It's got a special power pack.
Yeah.
Otter, Is you got like a different YouTube channel? Because when I go on my phone, I can't even pull it up.
Yeah,
there's
it's
no
one of the
description.
weird aspects of this. So whenever I had started doing streaming, StreamYard created a separate YouTube account specifically for streaming. So that's the difference. One
Okay.
has pre-recorded videos, the other is almost exclusively live streams. This is
Oh,
live
okay.
streams.
Gonna
Yeah,
be
that
fun to
happened
look
when I
at.
set up StreamYards too. I originally wanted to
Also-
do everything on the frequency channel. It wouldn't hook up to that, but it hooked up to Wrangler. So
Also, any of y'all in the chat, y'all can ask questions, and we'll pull them up and have
Yeah,
them answer
if
them.
you all
Yeah.
have any questions you want answered here in the chat,
I'll keep an
I'm
eye
all
on
for
chat.
answering them.
I'll keep an eye on chat for sure. My Asperger brain can never can jump between everything. So
well, for the three species, the three peoples in your world, can they interbreed? Can they intermingle? Or
Yeah, so I mean, you can probably make the obvious comparison. Like, there's very much kind of like they're not entirely different species. They're more just kind of like different races of people, more or less. And a lot of that is kind of like distinguished through
no.
their affiliation with different deities. That's a major factor in this setting. But I mean, there's also kind of like a factor of evolution over time. So a big example of
so
that.
they're kind of like Romulans and Vulcans. They're almost the same species.
Yeah, kind of like that.
So they all have a common ancestry. They're all hominids in nature.
Yeah, they're all hominid in nature. They're all variants of humanoid. It's just humanity is kind of like considered its own separate race within the context of like history and everything. Because like some of the family lines go back way farther than others. It really depends on ancestry.
Also, we have
Because
a
there's a
question
lot of
from
migration going on.
we have a question from Garham.
All
So
right.
here's a question. Is the story a standalone or the first in the series? If it's a series, how many have you planned?
So this is the first in a series, and how many I'm planning, that is actually an open question. So I have the ending in mind. I've had it in my mind for quite a while, but the actual amount of books that will take to get to that point, that's very open. I wanted to keep that open.
I think I can maybe help you with that. I could give you some the background behind a super long series, and then you can decide for yourself. It's like
You have 13 books,
more-
Black Knight.
it's more.
Yeah.
Well,
More.
the plan for this is I want to imitate the style more or less of Conan and Fafhrd the Grey Mouser, where you can pick up any one volume of the book, preferably, and it can fit within the larger saga, but it's also its standalone story. You can enjoy it on the merits of it being its own self-contained story.
Oh,
That's
like
what I
that.
want it to be.
Yeah,
That's
different
a good
adventure, a different adventure every time.
Yeah,
So a bit like
each
Hercule
story
Poirot.
is a different major adventure, different
So-
part of the world.
So a bit like Hercule Poirot in that sense, but then in fantasy world adventure.
Yeah, that's the plan anyway. That's what I'm trying to go for.
Say Hercule Poirot again.
What would be hell in this series? Another question by. Oh no, that would be the hell of a series. Garham.
Let's see. But on top of that, I also have one or two questions that I had noted down from before, I think.
Mhm.
So I think a day or so, Devil's Air, you were asking me about the brotherly banter.
Yeah, because if you are again, I have a brother too, and if I enjoy it, I think I'm gonna give it to him too. Because if the banter is done correctly, this can be a story where me and my brother can bond over in a way, since we're going to body read stories.
Yeah, so the biggest thing that I wanted to try and have with this is have the brotherly banter feel as natural as it can. And what This is kind of like a problem I had in an earlier draft or two that ended up solving itself the more I thought about how Steel and Stormbright bounced off of each other. Because one is more of kind of like an offensive type rogue or thief type character, and the other is more of a kind of like calm, collected sorcerer.
So it's literally two opposites of a coin.
Right. It's kind of like, I describe it as like a passive and active. They're almost like a yin and yang. They're meant to help fill in each other's blanks. So
I have a story of that in my movies, but I can't find it now.
The salt to their pepper.
Exactly.
Actually, when you think about it, how often do you see a hot-headed wizard? Usually someone to master magic has to be pretty well focused.
There are a lot of them in anime.
That is
Maybe
true.
I need to watch more anime.
Let's
Yeah,
see
because
here.
banter, especially for me, is just one important because, like I said, with Chat's story or even a Dutch story that I'm going to bother read, there's a lot about the banter. And if the chemistry is nice, I can literally see them because then they can just sit and I'll be satisfied.
Author,
Like-
don't tell him about Mac and Boris. Don't, just don't.
You
All right,
now
I won't.
tempted me, Black Knight.
No, I'm not. No,
Don't deny it.
no, I'm not. I'm here to tempt you about Lord Otter's book.
I already am gonna buy it.
All right. Garhom has another question. Will I maintain the same characters then? At least for this series, yes. I am going to try and keep it open if I want to have different perspectives down the line. I would like to have that be in different times and places in the world. But for this series specifically, I want to keep it centered on Steel and Stormbright. Even though there may be some shifts in perspective, it is still very much their story through and through.
Yeah, this is it's gonna be great.
Well, I'm really happy to see the feedback that you, Black Knight, Billy Bob Sack, Gino, and Sybil all had. You all made something I was fairly confident in into something that I'm really, really happy with.
So I have a question.
Yeah.
So for somebody who doesn't like reading more of the adult content, how would you rate your book? Is it too adult or is it just enough that you could get by?
Probably just enough that you could get by. Would you agree with that, Billy Bob Sack? Maybe, maybe not. So how I would describe it
You're not
is
muted, Billy,
most of the
so-
adult content is implied, or
Oh, he
either
says yes
implied
in
or
the
told
chat.
to you.
Yeah, that's-
I did not want to go too.
Oh
in-depth
my
into that.
goodness, he changed his name.
I did
Oh,
not
you didn't
want.
notice that earlier?
I was looking at the chat to keep a bit in mind of if there are gonna questions. So
Oh, I
So-
see. Billy Bob Sack is answering in the comments.
yeah.
Yeah.
So now that you're officially a creator, who are you going to start drama with, so that Royce can yell at you?
Oh boy, I've
you
already
getting
started a
into
little bit of
sex
drama in
with?
the past, but I mean, I could always fuck with Royce some more.
All
Yeah,
right,
but
I was
now- but now
outside.
it-
I'd say Maji, yes. It's got some dark stuff in it, but it doesn't go
Hmm.
full bore with it. You know.
It's
Most
That's-
of it is
I'm
implied.
not gonna get a
even the
Skinamax reading the book.
even the
I mean,
nudity-
there's-
even most of the
There's
actual.
two scenes that are.
The man
It's
on
like
the
spoilers.
screen.
No spoilers.
Well,
There-
it's
there is a
also-
little bit
I'm
of
telling you,
nudity
there's
in
two
the
Fucking
book.
scenes.
If
Magic
you-
King Bob.
Two scenes.
Yeah,
See,
because then I
understand
wouldn't
about
say it
nudity,
goes
but I'm
fully
just talking
explicit with
about
it.
Full Skinamax, where you're like 50 Shades of Grey later, you're like,
No.
holy shit. Yeah, no, I'm not gonna read that.
No,
It
except
is
the use
not.
Of the word
I wouldn't even
throbbing,
say
right?
it's as explicit as something like a Game of Thrones or anything like that. It's not to that level. It's more to the level of something like. I keep going back to Pulp Swords and Sorcery, about that level where
Okay.
you have descriptions of kind of like certain characters being naked or whatever, or maybe kind of like a little bit of spiciness here and there, but it's not meant to go too much farther than that.
So it's more like because I always say you need to challenge the mind a bit. Like it's more in the vein of shocking, but not traumatizing.
Well, since Christian brought it up, what was the main inspiration for Athletic Tits? It's the question.
Oh, boy.
The ultimate Kuna does the ultimate question.
You guys and tits, man. But you guys are guys.
That's because we're guys.
Yeah.
It's an interesting story behind the story of Athletic Tits. So in the first draft or so, my original vision of General Karst was very different from how she ended up in the final draft. And that was really because in the first few drafts, I was basically writing in a separate genre. At the time, I was kind of going more in the vein of something like Wheel of Time. I think I'd just gotten off reading that in the Dune trilogy. So it was something a little more focused on the world, but as I kept going on, I realized that the story I was telling would probably be better suited to have the pacing pared down a bit, actually be a bit more street level. And that's kind of when I slowly came to the conclusion that this would work much better as Swords and Sorcery. But to that effect, General Karst was a completely different character. It was still kind of like the same general idea, but she was not meant to be sexy at all, in fact. In fact, she was meant to be a lot more masculine in appearance. She was more of kind of like a deconstruction in that sense, but it wasn't very subtle.
She's a man, baby.
But in a later scene, I was like, okay, it's still kind of like this degenerate culture. So it's like she's praying before her goddess, but I think I describe it.
No spoilers.
No, we see that in the A cover, in the A panel. This
is not spoilers. I describe it as athletic breasts. And even whenever
now you're mixing those two up. Do you want me to make more memes of it? Or...
So the idea was that a lot of athletes, a lot of Olympic runners kind of like have a certain build to them. That's
Devil's Air. You need to do like the Vince McMahon with like athletic jugs, just different athletic tits, and then athletic tits is when his eyes are like, red and shit.
It depends on which template I have or screenshots I got. Like, I have a lot of potential, so
I'm missing the reference on that one. So
me too.
So
but,
athletic breasts are related to bloodshot eyes.
No, the Vince McMahon where you post each name, and it's like Vince McMahon like reacting on the right side, and it keeps going down each panel.
Herman, were you talking about the meme or what Otter was saying?
The meme.
No, I was talking about Billy Bob Sack.
Oh, okay.
Listen, I get it. You're like 3,000 years old, Herman. It's kind of hard for you to
respect your elders.
Timo!
Howdy, Timo. But to continue the point, whenever the later drafts came around and I decided that this story would be much better as Swords and Sorcery, I had always kind of pictured General Karst in a certain few scenes as more kind of like a lot more feminine, though still domineering. So she kind of changed into that. And as you can see in sort of like the artwork for that Neutron board did, like her actual appearance reflected that, but athletic breasts remained. And I showed that to Billy Bob Sack, and he went, "What the fuck, Otter?" And
we
that
also
kind of just spiraled out from there.
So
I think me, Black Knight, and Sybil really told you to,
Yeah.
So she's
And
kind
I
of like
think
the naughty.
back then we changed the name of the chat. I changed it.
So she's kind of like the naughty librarian with leather and swords, right?
Kind of, sorta.
I was more thinking the vein of Vi from Arcane.
So have you started your next book yet?
I've well gotten into. I'm trying to think.
The ultimate kahuna.
Kahuna.
Actually, this is not far off. But to answer your question, I've got the outline pen for the second book for a while now. I may go back to the drafting board a little bit, just because a few details have changed, a few key details, and I want to be sure that I'm going down the right track. I've definitely got the plan for down the road, but I want to be sure that this next book is the right step.
Yeah. Again,
So
for me it's always if you want to get me with your first book, and if I see great potential, I'll buy the next one. Like,
because they say the best marketing is the second book.
It depends.
Or the next book.
you want to read the second book is one of the best things.
In a lot of cases, especially with some older stories from the past century, even before, what I noticed was that some of the authors, like their first books, they were still perfecting their style. They were still polishing some edges, let's say. And their second book and their third book, they were much better. So
yeah, this first book especially, I mean, it wouldn't be half as polished if you guys hadn't gone through it, picked out little sentences or plot details that
Athletic
just didn't
tits.
work. Yeah, Athletic Tits is a good example, actually.
Yeah, it's good that you're at least planning out and getting your details straight, because that was a problem with the Game of Thrones. Like the first book has like major details that are kind of retconned.
Well, I since I've gone through the original story, I've pretty much always had the ending to the series planned out. It's just in between where it's been more of an open question. I have a general idea of what I want to do for my second book, as well as plenty of notes on it. It's just getting there while also staying true to what this story eventually became, because there were a lot of changes along the way. Like there were some pretty chaotic points where I thought
it's called
it was
evolution.
going to go one way, but it ended up going somewhere completely different.
It's called evolution.
Yep.
Christian's got a question for you.
Same thing here.
Yeah, can I read it? Can I read it?
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Okay. Will there be an episodic feel to your books, like old pulp, or will it feel more like a modern long-form pulp fusion?
Modern long-form
Damn,
pulp
you
fusion.
sounded official there, Herman.
So I'm guessing Kahuna is meaning more of kind of like more of an entry based and sort of like a longer series. Is that what he's asking?
I don't know, but Pulp Fusion has me like hungry for some reason.
The idea is I wanted to work on a micro level and a macro level. I want each entry to be its own self-contained story that you can digest pretty well out of order, but I do want there to be like nods to a larger story that are happening.
Well, I mean that's technically episodic, and that's actually not a bad way to go.
No, Spice Wolf has the same format where each story has their own stuff, yet you can read them on their own. So
yeah, that's the old style, pretty much.
Yeah, I very much wanted to keep it in sort of an episodic fashion, so not necessarily, not completely disconnected like like Conan is. Well, hell, even in Conan, there's kind of a timeline between the stories.
Well, not really. I mean, the way Robert E. Howard wrote it, it was basically he just jumped all over the place because he kind of had an idea where he wanted Conan to end up, but it really didn't matter how he got there.
It's more like the stories are kind of grouped into before Conan was a king and after Conan became a king.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really the timeline, you could say. Everything else is fully episodic.
Gino said if it's episodic, will there be a fast forward button?
I mean, you can always jump to a future book. I mean, there is always that. It's just going to have to publish first, though.
Yeah. And
So,
other can much
yes and
faster
no.
when the letter is wet. So
Yeah, Christian is saying pulp is typically a short and episodic, but your book is very much longer. and it
Long
sounds
form
there'll be a
pulp.
continuous story. The stories are still. The story is still self-contained.
But I still see Kahuna's point. There is going to be a continuous story to it. So micro and macro.
Like the first season of Burn Notice.
There,
every episode was its own self-contained episode, but everyone built up all together told a longer story.
Yeah, there is very much a case to be made. At least to a certain extent, I wanted to do a bit of fusion between old and new, old pulp style with a little bit of conventions from more recent fiction. Not fully. There's a lot I dislike in modern fiction writing, but at the very least, when it comes to there being a continuous story, that is one of the tropes I'm sort of having in there.
Yeah. By the way, go ahead.
Okay. Go ahead.
No, you. I said you could go. Then I wait.
Okay. Who was in your family, friends, or whatever was the main inspirations for Steel and Stormbright as characters as you develop them, their personality?
In family, oh god, that's kind of a tough one, honestly. I'm not sure I could point to family and say that was where those characters really were inspired.
I said friends, family, icons, whatever.
Okay.
Like, did you make your annoying little sister sacrificial victim number 3?
I can't really say I really had any characters that were full on self inserts like that. I guess you. I'm
not meaning like self inserts, but you definitely.
Oh,
you took from the personality you know of them and kind of melded it into their character.
I
told you should have fucking researched this shit. I told you.
Yeah, the problem is
I'm gonna research this. My mind overthinks everything, so
yeah, it's really hard to kind of like. I can't really think of a straight up answer to that one because it's not like one-on-one with a person I know. It's like there's like little bits and pieces from people I do know, but it's not meant to be like, oh, I clearly was inspired by this person I know for this character. It didn't really come out that way. It was more like I had the idea for the world and the story, and it's like I wanted each character to operate on their own, but also kind of like feed into that idea in some way, shape, or form, but from a different perspective, from a different facet of it. That was more of the thought process I had going into it.
There is a question in the chat.
Zuviel. Yep.
Does the ending of one story has an impact on subsequent ones? Yes, that will definitely be a thing.
So it's more like a growth cycle. Like every story is self-contained, but if you read the full back, you get the full story.
Yes, that is exactly what I'm going for with this.
Why are you speaking my language? That's how my favorite light novel is written.
I don't think we asked. I don't know if we've asked this before, but what makes your gods different than most other fantasies?
Ooh.
I wanted each. So I think a really good comparison I could probably make to the deities in this world. More than anything, I think a good inspiration for me was Pillars of Eternity. I really liked how the deities were handled in that series. And there's an inkling of that sort of bleeds through because each god or goddess embodies sort of a different ideal or faction mentality to them. So
Speaking of the gods and going a bit back to the magic on that, like, does the god you encounter have impact on which magic you receive?
Yes, but because there's sort of like this spiritual bond between what's real and what is sort of like metaphysical, and like especially if like the gods do have their chosen, they're not necessarily chosen ones, but they're sort of like scions or emissaries of their will. And that sometimes that's known, sometimes it isn't. But a lot of what actually binds like mortals to the deities is there's kind of like a common will or facet of them, and so usually they end up coinciding there. So like
Okay.
Stormbright is very much tied to Calamtu, the god of storms.
Clam chowder.
Clam chowder.
Yoda.
Chowda. Chowda.
Chowder. Let's see.
So I have a question. Kind of give a rough idea of the author. What was
All
the
right.
what was the last book you could not put down? You had to finish.
Ooh, the last book I could not put down.
Well, evidently stealing Stormbright.
No. Not
Jesus,
Oh,
Lodgy. Jesus,
he
Lodgy.
made something else.
Well, I've been reading a lot of sort of like Lovecraftian short stories lately. Not all of them are done by Lovecraft. That's the thing. There's some by Howard himself, others by Clark Ashton Smith, and that's kind of been while I was on the road last week, that was more or less my obsession, kind of like reading through all of those. I'm very much a big Lovecraftian horror guy, and that really scratched that itch.
Oh, the Ultimate Tacuna, like Gladius with his avatars from Marvel. Like the
Yeah, you
gods
could
are like
probably
that.
make a decent comparison to that. Yeah, it's sort of like Scions are chosen. Because this was something that was kind of there in the first draft or two. Like Stormbright was more of like a chosen one figure, but that changed the more I looked at it. I was like, I don't really like this. It feels too much like everything's set in stone. Not knocking prophecy stories by any stretch, but
No. Those can be good as well.
yeah. But I wanted this one to, especially this one, to embody kind of like young blood, rebellion, freedom. So that's a big reason why the two main characters are both teenagers in this story. I wanted it to be about kind of like striking your own path, kind of like
When we talk
defying the
about-
norms.
When we talk about teenagers, is it more like the upper half that they're in, or like the lower half? Like basically, is it more like TMNT 1990, or more like the new by Seth Rogen, where they act like more 10-year-olds? Like,
Did you say Seth Rogen?
yeah, I know.
I
Had to
think
make
he
the-
was saying Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Yeah.
Is the comparison he's doing.
Okay. It's probably, you could make a better comparison to TMNT 1990. It's like there is a certain level of maturity to them, specifically through what they have to go through in the earlier chapters of the story. But I mean, of course, they're still on the younger side. Like, what is it? Stormbright is around 15. Steel is like 17. So it's like they're on the higher end of being teenagers. But I definitely wanted them to be not quite as childish. There's still kind of like that banter between them.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I wanted it to be more sort of like that threshold of maturity, a bit more wisecracking dialogue. That was kind of like what I wanted. Not necessarily Joss Whedon though.
So a bit
Not
like Leo.
going quite to that level.
No, so a bit more like Leo and Raphael from TMNT, who always bicker and stuff.
Yeah, sort of like that. I definitely wanted it to be sort of like the introvert extrovert dynamic. One is more of a kind of like a gung ho, almost a bit of a bad boy. The other is more of kind of like the person who would just like shut himself off from the world and just read books all day.
That's why my username makes a lot of sense.
And Kahuna has a new question.
All right, let's see what it is. What led me to choose third-person omniscient instead of third-person limited? So that's another interesting question, because especially between the genre shift, early on it was more of a limited third person. You could probably make the comparison I was writing in more of the Robert Jordan or Brandon Sanderson style, but the farther along I went, the less I liked my own writing in that with that style. The Omniscient was really there. It was really something I picked up while reading Fawford and Grey Mouser. I was kind of reading that concurrently, and I loved how it's sort of like alternated between their own viewpoint, but also putting a spotlight through the world, but it wasn't through their own mind. It was kind of like taking a lot of creative freedom there. Some really outlandish descriptions of the world, and that also fit my setting to a T. I think that was where I really adopted that more.
Yeah, that made a difference.
I'm just gonna say I'm gonna head out now. So congratulations on your book. Hope things go swimmingly well. And I guess that's it.
Yeah, he's got to go take a nap and change his depends, you know.
Well, unfortunately, I got to bail out too because of work.
Get off my
damn
lawn,
it.
Billy Bob.
Tetch,
It's
we'll see you
Get
in
right.
Sunday coffee. So, Machi, I don't know for you, but I'll be sure to be in Sunday coffee.
All right.
I'll talk
See
to you
you,
guys
Herman.
later.
See you, Maji. And thanks
Later.
for all the compliments and good
good luck.
wishes.
See ya.
You've got this. Have a good day, guys.
You
Bye,
See you,
take care.
Maji.
All right.
See, there was
Also-
another question that was asked of me. How many otters are there? Unfortunately, none. And I kick myself every day for knowing that fact.
Also, Evil Eye just joined in chat. So,
Oh, nice. Did Evely have a question, or did he just join?
no, he
Oh, I
just said howdy,
see.
people.
Howdy, Evely. Let's see here. But yeah, I'm surprised nobody's asked me about music inspirations for this story. There were quite a few.
Now, I was thinking more about movie inspirations because of Swords and Sorcery.
Let's see. A good Swords and Sorcery movie comparison, I would have to say, would probably be Beastmaster. I really enjoy that movie.
Oh, cool.
Ooh,
Beastmaster, eh?
nice.
Wait a second. Beast.
You can look it up on YouTube. The whole movie's on there.
Oh,
Yeah.
It's like
I got something to watch then.
Yeah, it's very much kind of like more of a lower budget Swords and Sorcery tale, but it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's.
So, Otter, do you throw on a song when you write a fight scene and kind of
1982, is that correct?
listen to the song while forming that fight scene in your head?
I don't even do that. It's more that I write at certain times of the day, usually the first thing in the morning, but I'm listening to bands that kind of speak to me the most about who Steel and Stormbright really are. And I don't know, it just kind of like mulls over in my head throughout the day. And by the end, it's like I kind of know what the overall personality and what I'm actually going for is. That's what really gets the gears to working in my head.
Zufia has a question.
All right.
Do you
Do
have...
you envision a scene when listening to certain music? Curious to know what sort of music inspired you. Yeah, so there was one scene, especially when I was revising it. It was like it's about right around the halfway mark in the book, where it's like even while reading it now, it feels like I can just hear the music in my head. It's right there. And I don't know if other readers will notice that. We'll honestly have to see. But as for what sort of music inspired me, it was especially a lot on the metal side. Probably the band that ended up inspiring me the most was Eclipse. They have a few great albums, and their music really kind of like came to shape the final form of Steel and Stormbright. They have that perfect sort of like rebellious but also melodic side to them. It heavily inspired what came out of it. There's also a bit of Blind Guardian, a little bit of Beast in Black in there.
Yes.
So yeah, those were all major inspirations. I think those inspired me arguably more than any movie did.
Interesting, because when I hear Source and Sorcery, I think of Legend.
Hold up, you got no video game inspirations either?
I have a few video game inspirations. I told you one of them. Pillars of Eternity is a big one. Let's see, honestly. Trying to think of other video game inspirations. It's not even... It's hard to really point to specific titles, because I think more of just what I've kind of learned from tabletop RPGs over the years. First Draft especially was me kind of applying that just to novel form, but there's a lot more to it than just that. So it was a lot of hard lessons learned over time. But I guess you could say some of the classics inspired me. The original Fallouts were always an inspiration, even when I'm not trying to imitate it.
Definitely's got some ass.
The man behind the screen just tossed the link around, so you might see a few more coming in.
Hello, Hansi Kirsch. Perhaps. I actually haven't listened to Hansi Kirsch. I'm also not near as knowledgeable when it comes to music as a lot of people are. It's very much where I'm sort of oblivious.
Nice.
Yeah, Kahuna's in on that too.
Oh yeah, Kahuna. I listened to a lot of metal while riding. Beast in Black, Unleash the Archers, Eclipse, Iron Maiden, and much more. You and I both have very similar tastes, Kahuna. Those are
Kahuna, no
awesome
Sabaton.
bands.
No.
Did you include a world map in your book?
Yes, I have the world map in my book, and
Ooh.
Can you pull it up?
yeah, that is actually a great point. I
will be tracking the map, like
moment.
If the map is online, or I'll take a screenshot, I will be tracing it.
Let's see here. Share screen.
You all need the obligatory in your playlist.
Orbit Culture.
Yeah, so this will be in both the ebook version and the prints. This is a map of the world of Zervonia. It is very much kind of like laying out the different lands. As you can see, there's Alcaron. Below that is the Fields of Man, where a lot of humanity is actually sort of corralled in. But there's several other lands on top of the three main nations that kind of take place in this book. In this one, where it's really focusing more on like Alcaron, the Fields of Man, and Divnarost. But there's several other regions to it as well.
The names I really like, though. Very, very, very much adventurous.
Well, that's
Thank
also because, he didn't go too out there with the names.
No.
Trying not to, anyway.
Yeah, to the point where they're just, pretty much unreadable.
I think as far out there as I got was with the actual goddess herself. Her name is Zolgrathier, but that's about as outlandish as I tried to keep it.
I'm going to say
Obsidian Wilds?
Yeah.
Volcanic activity nearby?
Perhaps.
What book does that, Ziviel? He says, I hate it when I envision it one way and they come up with a map in book 3 or something.
That's in
Everything
reference
in
to
my
his
head
previous
becomes
post.
Huh?
Oh, I see. World
Yeah,
maps in fantasy
one.
books should be a must.
Yeah.
Well, this is very much a subjective opinion, but I agree with that wholeheartly.
Me too.
I'm kind of a map nut.
I
I'm
thought a
ashamed.
lot. I thought a lot about placing like at least part of this galaxy in my own in my own book, but I decided against it. Mainly for lacks of resources.
Yeah, Zuviel's asking the question to all y'all.
Yeah,
How the
this
fuck
is
do
for
you
all
come
of
up with
us.
Names of places, nations, and races.
Oh God, that's an open end. That's a loaded question right there.
That's a hard one.
That's oof. I myself have not
it's-
thought of that.
I think it's the hardest for anyone, especially
Yeah.
book titles. The most.
I-
I will bring up book titles.
For
That
me,
sometimes
it
can be the
depends
hardest
on
to
like
name.
setting more than anything, setting and genre for me, because depending on that, it changes.
I'm just starting something now, and after, it only took me getting to the end of a second book to realize, hey, maybe I should have done this a long time ago. Whenever I just got any idea for made up fictional name for a species or just any kind of name, I write it down. And I'll take that collection of names and start to try and sort out the different ones to what sounds like they could be from the same languages to get ideas of, okay, if I need fictional names for a race, a person, whatever, I have a whole list of options right here.
Yeah, Garhome. I mean, there's like one of them's incarnate, but you got a bunch of ones. As long as you like pay a fee, you can use them in the book.
Yeah, this one I actually have a hand-drawn version of this I had made earlier, but to port it easier into the book, I ended up recreating this through Incarnate Pro, and it's included in the first few pages of the novel.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, if you haven't done it before, I wholeheartedly recommend trying and drawing maps. It's very therapeutic.
And Incarnate's not that expensive. It's like $20-something a year or some shit like that.
Was that the program to make maps, or?
Yeah. You got to pay the pro one if you actually want to use it in your books and stuff, like you're actually selling it.
But
it is expensive.
Yeah, I mean, how I typically go at approaching names and what I write is, especially if it's more grounded to the real world, or if it's kind of like spinning off from our world, I try to keep it rooted in certain meaning, especially if it's based off a certain culture or something like that. That's where translation programs really are your best friend, and you can look up really good examples from history of how that ends up sort of like translating and applying to different people.
Yeah, so if you're going off like a real world, I'd also recommend using a name generator sometimes, because you can specifically look up different, cultural race type of names on there. If you're going for a real one, if you're going for a fantasy one, just keep in context to what type of naming conventions as well of the area.
Yeah, and for a lot of fantasy, what I do is I don't really have them closely tied to a specific culture or language, but what I typically do is I have an idea of the culture beforehand and what they embody, and I try to mimic that on sort of a phonetic level. What sounds like that culture to me? What sounds most important to them? And that's where a lot of the names come up.
Seeing how adventure is a big part of the story, has different names or different meanings in different cultures. Like, is there overlap in some culture, or does something in one culture mean something triggering in another? Or
right, and there can be overlap there too. There's not quite as much overlap in this world. There is some, though, especially when it comes to some of the bordering nations. But as for those within this novel, not quite so much.
Yeah, look up.
What were you saying, Billy Bob Sec? You were talking for a second and then you got muted.
Pull up the man behind the screen. Was I muted the whole fucking time, or I'm randomly getting muted?
You started talking and then you were muted.
You said look up and then you just cut off.
Maybe I accidentally touched it. I don't know.
And I think that's a really good example to go for. If you're going with a setting that's based off Nordic, where Nordic culture sort of inspired you, doing more kind of like obscure names or variants of those names is a great way to go. That's certainly one of the ways you can do it.
And name generators can help you with that, because you can look up specifically Nord male names, Nord female names.
I'm the weird guy in the group in the sense that I typically don't use name generators just because they always sound a little too outlandish for me. That's the only reason why I don't use them.
I'm talking specifically about like real.
I've never
world
had
names.
one.
Not the fantasy name generators. The
Yeah,
fantasy
that-
name generators is I wouldn't recommend.
Yeah, that's
But
what
like-
I'm talking about, fantasy name generators. It's more than just fantasy names, but it gets very convoluted very quickly.
Hold up,
Kahuna's got a
Christian,
cool
you
idea
also
there.
have
Oh,
the
yeah.
white-
Combination of Celtic and Mayan names. That's really interesting. Yeah, a lot of the names that I came up with, they weren't directly inspired, but a lot of them were influenced from ancient Roman and Celtic names. That's where a lot of the actual cultural flavor came into play.
Well, for one of my settings, I had a mixture of Celtic names and made up names because, well, the setting was Tir na Nog, which is from Celtic folklore. So I figured it wouldn't make sense if there were no Celtic names here. That would be dumb. So if it wasn't a Celtic name, I tried to make it sound like it might be an offshoot of or whatever, and some of them I hit, some of them I missed, but I mean, you get the idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good way to do it.
Yeah, man behind the screen. You can use generators. You always need to say it out loud and make sure it doesn't sound fucking retarded.
Yeah,
Right.
I didn't even know name generators was a thing. I just
the fanatical stuff can get pretty.
make stuff up as I go.
Especially whenever
D&D
you
players
get
use
into
them a
sort
lot.
of the tabletop RPG
Yeah.
side of things, that's where
Focus.
a lot of people start recommending name generators.
Well, it's also
Well,
like
when I
if
last
I'm
did
trying to
that, I
come
don't
up
think
with
we had them.
Irish name, or if I'm trying to come up with Irish names, you can use an Irish name generator for male or female, or I mean, fuck, you can look up lists of typically Irish names as well.
Now, keep in mind, Louder, until I played the game with you last month, I hadn't done TTRPG since early 90s.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, you also were like carrying around a rock and a box that you found on the side of the street.
That's right. It gets me in
There will be consequences for that rock.
places, and if I need to use it, it'll get me out.
Christian asked, were there any movie soundtracks that you would like to listen to while writing?
Oh, that's a good question. Oh, because there for the longest time, I would listen to a lot of trailer music in the vein of Thomas Bergeson or Two Steps from Hell.
Ooh, Two Steps from Hell.
Yeah, not quite so much anymore though. But as for movie soundtracks that I always think of, one that always comes to my mind is the soundtrack for Highlander. I know that's technically just a Queen album, but it really does kind of hammer home the energy of that movie. And
What more did you need?
Exactly.
yeah, really.
I usually use Mass Effect 1 soundtrack or Doom Eternals.
Doom Eternal is always a great one to go for.
I recently wrote an entire fight scene. I don't know what this is from. It might be from a video game or something. I found the song on YouTube. It's called Berserker by Light and Dark. Or Light and Darkness.
Never heard of it.
I was looking for ominous battle music because I was going to write a scene. I found this one, and I'm like, this is exactly what I'm looking for. And I just listened to it over and over on repeat while I was crafting the entire scene and battle scene in my head.
Also, but you also do, not everyone, but you also do kind of have to be careful of what song you're listening to while writing. Because if you're trying to have like a peaceful, laid back scene and you're playing fucking, heavy metal or some shit.
It's typically why I don't.
That doesn't quite jive.
I normally don't listen to music while I write, just because when I usually write is whenever I'm kind of half asleep in a sense. That's whenever my best writing comes through, strangely enough. There's sort of like that element of, I don't know, I'm just going with it. I'm just going with a thought through my head.
What up, Animated Moon?
Yeah, I sent the link to him on the Gilded. So
Well, let's see, but what other questions were there while we're going through this list? I think we already went through how the magic works.
Yeah, that was one of my first ones. And
There's also
hit a lot
little
of
world
questions.
building tidbits. I think you were asking this again, Devil's Air, but were there any other bits about the world itself that you were kind of curious about?
for me, the economics are always a big part for me, crazy enough, because if you can't say how much something costs in one country, how would you know in another? Again, I always go to Avatar: The Last Airbender. Earth, water tribe money is less worth in Earth country. Like, is there a dynamic in that, or something with is steel really just a rogue? Can he steal stuff like Styx from the game Styx Master of Shadow, in that vein?
I mean, if we're going by character, Steel is very much in kind of like that vein of thief, where he's really skulking about the shadows, yoinking people's purses, but at the same time, he doesn't stoop below a certain level. If we're going exact economics, though, it isn't quite as in-depth, but I will tell you that Alcaron itself is very much an economy built on war and kind of like absorbing more as it's going on. Very kind of like hegemonic, like we're trying to cover up as much land as we can. Really try and like.
Say this?
Yeah.
At least this story, it's not really heavily. There's not really a moment where he can like focus on like any economics or.
No, I understand that, but if they need to buy stuff, then there needs to be some sense of what will something cost.
Yes, but there's like, try not to spoil it, but I'm just going to say there's not really an opportunity for stuff like that in this one.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, but it's just something.
A lot of the civilizations they come across are usually at a certain disadvantage to where they can't really buy, or it's the place itself is nearly in ruins.
Ah.
Not a whole lot of opportunities for shopping.
There's no shopping sessions, basically.
That's why I was trying to say, at least in this story. Now, Otter, if it comes down later down the line, now keep in mind for Devil's Air,
Okay, I think Ultimate Kahuna had another question. What does life look like for a regular person in your world? Now, it really depends on what race you are, because it really affects the overall outlook and who you want to be dealing with. If you're a human, basically you want to try and stay as far away from the Ograthians as possible and try and live a simple life. That's really, it's as simple as that. Because if Alcaron or the Ograthians start kind of like putting their hands in your business, it can end really badly, really quickly if you do not know how to deal with them. As for Ograthians, it's pretty well proving yourself to your goddess and also trying to live as basically a fulfilling life as possible in the worst sense of the imagination. That's really it, because it's paradise, but it's very much like an earthly, pleasures of the flesh paradise. So good,
you also
bad.
have like beastkin races in the world as well.
What is it?
You also have like beastkin, like animal humanoids.
Yeah, there are those as well. They're alluded to a little bit, and theirs is a lot more tribalistic. That's the thing. Without getting into details, really, a lot of the actual civilizations in the world, say for Alcaron, Divnarost, and a couple others, are mostly tribal or some variant of that. A lot of them are either recovering from some great catastrophe, or it's the after effects of war. So that's really the state of life within Zervonia at this point in time.
Got C.A. Pence, Brian McCoppins in here. If any of y'all chat got questions, y'all can ask
Just
them
ask
in
us.
there and we'll read them.
Hail, C.A. Pence. Well, let's see. I think I've gone through kind of like this list of questions here. Was there any questions that chat had? Any others that you all had about inspirations or anything like that?
I'm thinking at the moment.
I was going to ask a question that I was asked. Which was the possibly oldest book you read, which had something to do with what you wrote? Was perhaps like not even the most influential, but had something to do with your current book.
Okay. Here's one I actually read. I didn't even think of it among the list of inspirations, but it did end up inspiring me. Was I was reading through some of the letters and essays of Marcus Cicero about a year or so back, and that just kind of like, especially his mode of speaking, and especially kind of like giving a bit of insight into the culture of the time. That was probably the oldest piece of, well, nonfiction that I had actually read through for this, and it was something that was more on a whim, but I do think it ended up influencing this book around the end.
Nice.
You could also make the case of Lord Dunsany. I'm quite a big fan of Lord Dunsany. He has a lot of very classical, weird fantasy that ended up inspiring me, such as In the Lands of Time, his whole Gods of Pagana series. That was a really big influence, and I think those were published around like early 1900s, maybe 1910s, somewhere around there. I didn't go too old for the list of reading for this, though. That's about as far back as it really goes.
Oh yeah, question about the languages, because there again you said adventure. Do you really hear a difference in speaking from the characters they interact with, like some sort of accent or even some slur words that are happening?
There aren't really any slurs, but certain characters, depending on who they are in the world, do speak differently. One of the characters I can think of off the top of my head, he speaks in almost like borderline King's English. And it's for pretty obvious reasons, but it really depends on how far back you go, because a lot of the characters that speak in the moment, like especially Steel and Stormbright themselves, it's a little bit of kind of like that older form of pulp dialogue, but with a few wisecracks kind of like sprinkled in here and there. As for some of the older and more ancient characters, it gets a lot more elaborate. That's kind of like the final form that it ended up taking, which is very different from some of the earlier drafts.
Final form.
Well, earlier drafts, almost every character kind of spoke in the pseudo King's English, and it did not gel with me. I like how it ended up a lot more.
Yes. Also, Billy Bob himself asked a question via the chat. So,
all right. How did you keep the inspiration to keep going and finish this book? Setting a schedule is a big one. First hour of the day is usually when I write. First hour, 2 hours of the day, early in the morning. Before I even really started processing what I'm going to be doing that day, that's when I'm trying to write out more
Head empty,
and more.
no thoughts, just writing.
Yeah, no thoughts, just write. And that's what got me through a lot of it. That, and especially reading. It hasn't always been reading. I've definitely been inspired by some video games I've come across. I think a few of the major ones that kind of helped me early on were like little bits of like Final Fantasy 14, maybe. a little bit of Dragon Age Origins, but a lot of it was where I got a lot of the real meat and potatoes of helping to hone my craft was reading a lot of older literature, some modern, but especially kind of like early 20th century and farther back. That's where you could really get a sense of like, okay, here's what you can really do with the English language. Here's how you can really stretch it and have it still work.
Oh.
Now, during your process, when you had that shift where originally you were going for that more epic fantasy, as you mentioned, and it ended up coming down to that more grounded swords and sorcery, at what point did you say, all right, I'm making that shift? What solidified that for you?
I think it was when I ended up finishing my second draft, because my second draft was a hell of a lot cleaner than my first draft. And even then I had pared down a bit on the pacing, and the book was significantly longer, because whenever I had first started the book, it was around 120,000 words. By the end of this final draft, it ended up being 50,000. So quite a lot of filler cut out, I would say. But I'll say this: the end of my second draft was when I read through the story. I went, "This is fine." I finished it. I enjoyed it. I thought, yeah, it's okay. Not too bad. Not great either. Just kind of fun but forgettable. And that was kind of the point where I went, you know, this story, it still kind of speaks to me. It feels like there's something untapped there. It feels like we're going through the motions, but I'm not feeling it.
Dilton Spoon had another question. So, what was your biggest writing weakness? Did you have a particular area and that you needed to vastly improve throughout the process?
Character voice is a big one. I've heard a lot of authors and writers say that, especially with their first book, they're learning a lot on how to develop character voice, and that was something I really had to learn a lot about, especially with where I was having banter between Steel and Stormbright. I wanted them to sound like separate people.
YouTube censored my fucking comment. What the fuck?
What did they censor?
Didn't even have any curse words or anything. I guess because I said parents, and YouTube said fuck that.
But that was probably the biggest one. Also, this is something you kind of develop the more you read, the more you write, but also the exact grammar and tone you want to go with, because that's the thing. Like, what kind of vocabulary are you going for? What is really part of your style? And it's really hard to answer that short of just writing and figuring it out yourself.
Yeah, you just have to write more and experiment.
Yeah, because my first few drafts, the language was very different from how they were a few drafts later, and even that was very different from where it is now.
Thou art must kill vampire. Every time you mention the old English, that's all I'm going to think of is my immortal.
Stop Fleming, okay? Oh my lord!
I'm so happy I never read that.
I still need to watch that.
It was a lot of fun. It was torture, but it was fun.
What YouTube channel did you watch to help you with the weapons of the era that you're trying to base it in?
That's very specific. Weapons of the era. I'm trying to think if I even looked at any YouTube channels specifically. There were a few resources that helped get me an idea, and one I like to recommend. Let's see if I can find it over here. It is this. It's sort of an anthology collection by Orson Scott Card, editors of Writer's Digest. It's kind of like little tips and tricks on writing through fantasy and sci-fi. When I was first looking into actually writing, that was kind of like one of my main resources, and it still has some really good bullet points in there for things you should be aware of in like medieval settings, for example. You would also be surprised what you can find in a lot of RPG books. A lot of RPG books have already gone through a lot of the research process for you. Doesn't mean you should rely on them solely, but they can give some really good pointers and tips.
I just use Wikipedia for everything.
Wikipedia is a bit help too.
Not really, not really.
Not for history, not for being historically accurate, mind you, but if you need to know something pretty common, pretty basic, very well known, that's where Wikipedia is more your friend.
Also, it's also a good place to find links to other articles, but
yeah, definitely. But especially like this is a little unrelated, but whenever I've done research for the Suluk stories that I've written, which I would actually like to write another one at some point, is it wasn't through Wikipedia for a fact, but if I needed to know like general highlights and go into further research, Wikipedia is good for having the Cliffs Notes, but even then you kind of have to acknowledge that you likely got something wrong.
Yeah, Pence just said it best. He said Wikipedia is good for something quick and dirty.
I wholeheartedly agree.
Yep.
Also, a question about when you were writing, like, did you actually envision a fighting scene? Like, I always have enigmatics when I'm reading something in my head, or is it really like finding what was the right thing to do about what? Because the ebb and flow of a battle can be very interesting.
For me, this is kind of something that this was a point I took from Walter B. Gibson, actually, was when I wrote out my chapters, and this applies to fight scenes as well, was start strong and end strong. And then at that point, you're really connecting the dots. And I think it's part of why having a good outline is very important, because especially for fight scenes, that's where an outline really helps me. That's where I can kind of plot out each beat. And then if there's any variation, that's happening in the moment while I'm drafting. So especially for fight scenes, that's where having a good outline really helps.
Hey, maybe we can go make a Wikipedia entry. We'll start an entire Wikipedia page called Athletic Tits.
Athletic Tits.
And then underneath it, say steel.
Which concentration camp do you want us to stay at, Wrangler?
The Hilton.
When we get caught by the Thoth police.
Oh, don't worry. We can outthink them.
Yeah, easily.
There might be a lot more of them. We might not be able to outfight them, but we can outthink them.
The gray areas are hard to find, but they are able to find, so...
I will go ahead and go off on a quick tangent on beta readers. If you're in the middle of writing your own manuscript and you're still unsure about something, having a good set of beta readers that aren't afraid to give you honest and helpful critique really makes a world of difference.
And also,
I think that's what really ended up fully completing this story of mine, because there were a lot of plot details, a lot of bits of prose that I was still uncertain about, but having other creators who aren't afraid to give you constructive advice that can be a bit on the harsher side really, really helps.
Yeah, like I can't stop singing his praises, but Gino was such a huge help to me.
Yeah, Gino really helped me. Black Knight, Sybil, Billy Bob Sack, they were my major beta readers for this story.
Yeah, again, I'm going in like Royce with most of his stuff. Like, reading was a chore for me, so now that I'm getting back into it and stuff, so I'm going in with harsh critiques always. Like, if this is a completely separate world, it's not our world, so what you set up, I'm gonna make notes of. Like, I always give a bit of leeway. That I will say, because it's your first book. But again, I'm gonna write stuff down, look at what can be potentially setups and stuff, just to get everything right.
Yeah, and
Everybody
I'm
knows about
expecting
honest
there to be.
critiques.
I'm expecting there to be a fair amount of flaws with this book. Biggest thing is I want to learn what I really need to improve on. That's the big thing. What can I take away and actually improve over time?
If you, the biggest thing is, especially for me, was that I had to learn everything on the fly in like English, writing in English, vocabulary, etc., etc. But the advice, like the best advice I was given was write it, edit it, proofread it, and publish it. Because it's like you're not a perfect being. You will make mistakes. And the only way to learn most of them is to have a lot of people read it, and that's the only way. You can't shield yourself and isolate yourself from the audience. Like, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. What was that asshole on Twitter, Otter and Black Knight? The one who was telling you that you just need to shelter off and just write it. You know, don't.
Oh yeah, I'm not gonna name names.
Oh,
but I know what you're talking about.
That guy, he's no.
We know we're talking about. We are talking about that person.
In fairness, it seems like he's cooled off a bit since then. I'll give him that. But
he's gaining steam for another outburst.
Listen, you got a lot of people in our guild. If you need beta readers and stuff, I'll be more than willing to help you out.
Also, the Ultimate Coon has another question. How did you learn to self-edit?
Oh, that's a tough one. Honestly, a lot of it comes from reading and writing, and also looking at your own work and seeing what you like, seeing what you don't like, seeing what parts you don't like can be improved, and how you can go about that.
Also, sometimes it's good to have time away from when you come back, and then you can look at it more.
Yeah, that's another thing. Letting your work sit for a little while.
Yeah.
Although, don't do what I did. I sat on my first one for a year. That's a touch long.
I'm still working on my world building, so...
If it makes you feel any better, Wrangler, I sat on this story. I originally came up with it around April or May, and I sat on it until later in the year. I didn't actually fully start writing it until later on.
Well, Devil's Air, you're farther along than me. I haven't even written any world building shit on mine.
I had the idea that came around the same time as Otter, so for me it's just like I need to get everything strict, because I know there are some people, and especially some reviews, that say, oh no, you can't do that, and I think we need to set some hard limitations here at least. So
Otter, did you say who creator you're going to start beef with?
I mean, there were some volunteers.
Obviously, it's going to be Royce. Obviously.
Yeah, but he hasn't written anything, so he kind of loses that.
I don't know. I have my opinions, but I'm trying.
You know who
trying
you
not
should
to
start
create
shit with? Daniel B. Riley, because he does fantasy, right?
Oh fuck.
Yeah, y'all come into conflict. You know, we stir up some craze. Because look, when I do my secretary one, I'm gonna start a shit with Sybil. Okay.
Oh, I see.
Dude, I got in trouble with what was 2 persons from the guild, but we fixed up around an hour later. So, and now we can just make jokes. So,
that's usually how it goes. Yeah,
nice.
I know. Out of everyone who beta read through my stories, Sybil was basically the one who acted like a copy editor going through it, because he would pick out a lot of semantics and syntax that just did not work, or if something seemed a little anachronistic, he'd point it out. It was really good
I recommend to everyone for oh yeah, you want someone with good grammar and shit. Sybil.
Yeah.
Well, remember, the man behind the screen called dibs on you, Otter.
Yeah,
a while
that's
ago.
what I said. I knew there was some in chat, but I couldn't remember the name for a second.
I couldn't remember who did it either, so I scrolled back and happened to actually get lucky and find it at 1:39 p.m. The man behind the screen said, "Dibs on the Otter drama."
Oh, I see. I see.
Oh, I can make a meme about that. That's gonna be fun.
But yeah, especially when it came to character voice, I think Sybil was the one who helped the most with that. He was the one, like, even whenever I'd refined my characters a lot more, he would still point out certain bits and say, it blends a bit together here. We need to fix it. Something's not right here. And we finally came across on what sounded better. But
Yeah.
And it's much better to have someone tell you that while you're writing it than after it's published.
Freaking kahuna.
It's a blessing. It's a blessing to have like a responsive beta readers on time, which there are a lot of authors out there, especially indie authors, who have probably no one who has some experience in beta reading, and they can only hope to ask friends or family, and it's not the same. I mean, it's still a plus, but it's not the same.
Yeah, I had friends and family beta read before I had you all read through it, and I still got some good points out of it, but it's vastly different.
Well, because we're friends, but we
have more skill points. We have more skill points than them.
And also, we look for opportunity to bust each other's nuts. So when we find a screw up, we'll tell you.
Oh no! I wasn't doing that. I was doing something entirely else.
Yeah, but it also really helps having a good beta reader that really informs you of what you're doing right and what's not so great, and then trying to help you to get to more of what you're actually trying to do. That makes such a big difference.
It'll also help that in Gilded there are a lot of experienced writers, so they can teach you from their own mistakes of what to do and what not to do, or how to phrase stuff. So,
right.
Yes, but that works only to a certain extent.
Yeah, that's true.
From a certain level, over a certain level, you have to start making your own mistakes.
Yeah, that's true. But
because you're a different person than the author who taught you. It's like
it's true. Everyone has their own voice, but
own thinking, and it's like that's something that that other special side they can't understand, because they are all collectivists. They are all the same. Have to all the same party line, etc., etc. It's like
they don't understand what it's like to say, "I've watched and I've seen what you've done, and I'm not going to repeat your mistakes. I'm going to make all new ones."
And they make all the same.
Athletic
at the same
tits.
time.
That's right.
I mean, this is like you wouldn't have reached a certain point in your work unless it was Billy Bob with the telling you about this.
Listen, I just never heard that descriptor in my entire life. All the books I've written are,
and now we'll never hear the end of it.
Yeah,
Neutron Boar.
Oh, trust me,
Pandora's
when I have
box
the book,
is
I'm
open
gonna
now.
make a meme out of it. Like,
Hey, Neutron Boar.
Hey.
Talk about a glowing endorsement for an artist. Neutron Boar, I don't think you can get much better artist-wise.
Oh, he will.
Make him blush.
He's getting better.
Bring up Neutron Boar's art. Bring it up.
Yep. Good point.
Just look at your cover
panel.
Just look at your fucking cover, man, and then look at the
interior.
Yeah, especially his latest covers. Oh boy.
So if you need any cover artist or illustrator, or just want to commission some art, and you can see this beautiful art, you can go find Neutron Boar on Gilded.
Yeah, he makes amazing gods that actually look like gods of thunder and lightning.
Listen, think of the old
right
Thor
now,
movie.
right now he's swamped under like a big hill of commissions. We want a mountain on him. That's all I'm saying.
No. We want a planet. A planet.
Yes.
Let's get that number up.
We want
But
his
he
fingers
also
down to,
does
like a bone, you know.
The Iron Age is gonna make Neutron Ball rich.
and athletic
Neutron
tip.
Ball will
And
like
tired.
the Titan Atlas carrying the heavens on his back, but
and also airships.
yeah.
So basically, what we're saying is we want Jupiter amount of work for him, you know.
Keep this up. He's going to have to draw more of himself to keep up with the demand.
Yeah.
What would a doodly bob neutron bore be called? If I remember from SpongeBob.
Honestly, it's a good question. Proton pig?
His alter ego.
That's
Also
the best one I can think of. Neutron Boar versus Proton Pig.
Also, Otter, can you ever see your book be adapted into a game like The Witcher has become?
That's dangerous.
It could be a good linear game. It wouldn't be open world.
No, but especially now that MMOs and no, not MMOs, multiplayer free games are kind of on the receiving end of stuff. Like a good linear game.
Frequency that doesn't look right.
Continue, Devil's Air.
Like a good linear game, like something like Hi-Fi Rush, can be very good, especially in the what's it called again, in the market that we're in now. So
yeah, and if this series was to be adapted into a game, it would have to be something more along the action side of things. Probably something more in the vein of a classic CRPG, or if it was more
Golden Axe. Oh.
Yeah, I could see it being sort of like Golden Axe. Yeah, that would actually work.
What you should also do?
What's that?
Jigsaw puzzles. Look into it. Maybe you can get you know.
I know when I'm going to read it, I'm going to be harsh on it, just like with the other ones I've planned and still reading through.
See, well, we're going to have a jigsaw puzzle of that. Jigsaw puzzle of that.
Just go right back to that cover. Although that is gorgeous, the God
That's
one.
the cover without just the art.
Without the text. That could easily be a jigsaw puzzle.
Oh, yeah.
I think it could be cover itself, the full cover could be a nice jigsaw
puzzle. The full cover would probably be.
It can be a great poster too, without the text. Like, just those two brothers with the clouds.
Yeah, but then you miss out on the beautiful fucking lettering and shit.
That's also true.
There's pros and cons to both.
That is our Lord and what was it? Lady and Savior.
That's General Karst.
No. He's talking about the statue.
Oh yeah, I see. Yeah, that is a statue of Elgrathier.
Did it censor that one where I put the Lady and Savior? Do you want to hear about the word of our Lady and Savior?
Oh, I thought Elgrathier was. I thought that was Karst.
No. You have the Ilgrathians, which is the people, then the goddess, and then General Karst. She's worshiping it. She's no spoilers. That's all I'll say.
Yeah, no spoilers. It's about
most year our beta readers. I'm the new one, eh? So
I hear disruptor loading noises. That's what. Yeah.
I loved whenever I was seeing Black Knight's beta reader comments for that chapter, and one of them was just Boris is reloading his blaster with a new power pack.
A bigger power pack.
Basically saying Boris won't stand for this degeneracy.
I forgot what even the fuck up with it.
I think whenever I got to the end of yours, you just had one word and it was nice.
Nice. No. Oh wait, I have to do it correctly.
Nice.
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 Oh God. Let's see.
Athletic tits. No.
Remember, you have a meme lord on stream, eh? So it's in the name.
Oh, do your parents know that your book's coming out?
Yeah, they know. They know. The two otter parents, they know. It was pretty funny showing them some of the illustrations, seeing their reactions.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah.
Hey, what degenerate fucking son have I raised?
I think they've.
That's a lot
pretty
of
well understood it.
Hold up. You came out to them in a very subtle way. That's a lot of shirtless men illustrations in there.
Fuck you. Oh my God.
And then they saw the athletic tits.
Then they saw the athletic tits.
And they were like,
You see Nikolai's comments in the chat?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, they said they're sending mixed messages, Otter.
Like, what are you trying to say, son? All right. Let's see. It seems like we're getting pretty close to time up here. Before we start heading off, was there anything else anybody had?
I'm just hoping my package of your book, when I order it tomorrow, will be in the correct state. Or we need to talk about
that book, Otter. Jesus.
Well, I just got the proof copy for the paperback the other day, and everything's been looking perfectly fine to me.
Okay. In that case, I'll be going just to Amazon, and then I'll be having it in about 3, maybe 4 days.
Perfect.
And how soon before we can look forward to the prequel?
Not the biggest fan of prequels.
I can't stand them.
It's Wrangler. Do you know when he will write the prequel? When he adds a plus after his name.
I saw it on Otter Plus.
Only others.
Yeah. So if it helps in any capacity, this is very much intended to be the origin story for these
CA,
characters.
what about a reboot?
So I do not want there to be any room for prequels.
Oh, and I just want to say this: if there's any more degeneracy in this book in certain scenes, no spoilers. It's all Black Knight. I mean, y'all just don't know this man.
Yeah. It was all me. I admit it. Yeah.
Oh boy.
Oh, he said.
Wait, what was that noise? What was that noise? I'm hearing a strange noise. Oh shit!
It's pre-medieval music. It sounds like bow chicka bow bow.
I'm hearing blaster
No.
shots.
It's like something. Probably a weapon being loaded, but I can't pinpoint the noise. It's like coming from everywhere. I know what.
I know
not
what you're
happy
talking
for some
about.
reason.
I know what you're talking about. I
something about lasers.
I could send out her the clip so he could play it. I can't
Okay.
play it from here. It's not my stream.
Yeah, go ahead and send me the clip, and we can do it as part of our parting
Have fun,
plugs.
Kuna.
I thought I had sent you that before. Oh no, I sent that to readout a while ago.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
Oh, and
I do
Nikolai,
not remember
you
you
gotta say
sending
hi
it to
in
me.
chat. You gotta say hi in chat, Nikolai.
Hi, chat. Hi, chat. Hey, I said something after 1 hour.
Hey, Nikolai.
Well, hey, Otter, we'll be doing the cyberpunk or tabletop one.
Yeah,
which you'll
yeah.
have Nikolai's character, Luther Jones.
I'm
We're
working
going
on
to be
6
having a lot
tabletop
of player
characters.
characters in this next game for sure.
I'm having 6 characters I'm working on right now. So
6 characters.
Yeah, it should be in your PMs now.
All right, perfect.
Is what?
PMs, private message, or is it supposed to be DM, direct message? I don't know. Your messages, it's in there.
Yeah, he's sliding into your DMs, Otter. Makes sense.
Oh, I see.
kinky.
Just a
AM,
little.
PM, whatever.
Just a little.
Yeah, Kahuna,
There we are.
I'll play it again. Didn't even have sound.
No sound. Yeah.
No sound.
I don't hear it.
No sound?
Nope.
No sound.
Well, that's strange. Damn. Oh, I could be fiddling with technical settings, but I'll leave it on that.
Also, Christian, you're gonna have to do a full video book review of Otter's book. Just saying.
I can't wait for Kahuna's one. That's gonna be great.
Well, if Kahuna does a video review, I'm gonna be all over that.
He was having trouble with this.
Well, he just got a PC.
No. He was having like more of a creative trouble with this. He kept saying that he records stuff, but he can't like feel them right. So I don't know.
Also, we're about a minute over time now.
Yeah,
So,
I was about to say we should probably go ahead and do our parting plugs. So, Black Knight, I'll let you go ahead and go first since you did that wonderful review of Steel and Stormbright.
Oh my, thank you. Well, you perhaps know me as Black Knight. I have published 11 books. 7 of them are part of the Star Shatter series. The rest are in the same universe, the same alt history universe. 2 are anthologies, collections of short stories, with the Blood of Tyrants being the newest entry, and 2 are Conan-esque style novellas, shorter, about a guy named Velin, and these are more of a sword and railgun thing. So if you like space opera, if you like pulpy goodness and wholesome brutality, I can certainly provide with enough of it.
All right. Next up, Devil's Air. You have anything to show?
Well, I am a meme lord of the Iron Age, so if I see stuff happening, mainly on Twitter, I'll meme it. I don't have any professional work at the moment, but I'm memeing around, just having fun with making memes because they are the ultimate joke of the internet, and if I find something funny, I'll try and make something funny out of it. And at most, I'm still looking for a job in administration, but at most, you can find me on Twitter, and at most, working on my own world building.
All right. Nikolai.
I don't have anything to plug. Sorry, not yet.
Plugs not included. All right.
Yeah, so I would like to plug this book. Some talking otter has written a book. I heard it. It was good. I don't know anything about it.
Nikolai,
is this dashing gentle otter you're talking about?
Yeah, Nikolai.
No.
Steel and Cuckbright. Is that the name?
Fuck
yeah,
you.
Something about Cucklight.
Is that stolen cock rings? What?
Oh my god.
Others, they're long and wet.
I don't want to continue with that conversation. Wrangler.
All right, definitely divorced from that previous conversation. Check out Haley Star Bad Kitty. It's a good time. It looks a little something like this. And yeah, these two got to stop an alien invasion. And
with a potato cannon.
Yep, starts off with an arm-mounted potato gun, and it gets wackier from there. It's a good time, low fantasy sci-fi. Check it out. It's on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Walmart, pretty much anything online. You can get it through there.
Perfect. And last but not least, Mogwai, otherwise known as Billy Bob Sack, a.k.a. Steel and Cuckbright.
Yeah, you can find me on Only Gremlins, you know. Eventually, I'll be setting up, I don't know, a downstream pulp or whatever page or whatever the fuck it's called or Substack, because I'll be eventually getting on a short story in the Otter's Cyberpunk Dark Augment setting. That's about it.
All right.
And if you need art, go to Neutron Bore. I swear to God, we're going to turn it into the size of Jupiter. It's going to crush him.
Oh, yeah.
Gonna crush his creative back. Yeah.
This hand will not be able to do the art that he wants.
Oh, and then you know, if you have money left over from getting Neutron Bore's beautiful art, get Steel and Cuckbright. It's a great book. Huge. It's fantastic, you know.
That's athletic tits.
Athletic tits. Kaplaw, 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 kaplaw.
on that note, if you're at all curious about Steel and Stormbright, the Curse of the Star Raids is classic swords and sorcery with a little bit of dark fantasy thrown in just for some extra good measure. You can find it on Barnes & Noble, Amazon after we worked out all the problems there, and all the other major retailers. That will be releasing tomorrow on Sunday, October the 15th.
Do you got the link? You got the link? Put it in the chat and then put the link.
That would be perfect.
Video description if you can.
One question: will there be an audio book?
Yes, that's actually in the works, and I'd like to try and see if I can do it myself.
Nice.
Nice.
You're not reading the whole thing as Eric Cartman, are you?
I could.
Can't you read as Mr. Garrison instead?
I mean, I could try. Okay, children, we're going to be telling you about Steel and Stormbright. It's the best book you've never read.
I'll be shilling the shit out of you if I ever get bigger on stuff. Like,
All right. Well, in that case, have a great afternoon, gentlemen, and best of luck. Bye-bye.
Congratulations, Otter. Yeah. Have a good one, everybody.
Yo.
Have fun.